The Satanic States of America tour is what you get when you combine Glenn Danzig with highly functional musicians. The tour was set to start in late 2023, midsummer to be exact, and it was set up where Glenn Danzig was the main headlining band, followed by their supporting acts Behemoth, Twin Temple, Midnight, and Imperial Triumphant. Not too long after the dates were set for all bands to come and play, Glenn Danzig had bailed out of quite a number of dates out on the bill, leaving bands like Behemoth, Twin Temple, Midnight, and Imperial Triumphant stranded. So they were left to act and basically create their own tour and fill in a bunch of dates that were left empty by Glenn Danzig. On this tour in particular, I saw Behemoth, Twin Temple, and Imperial Triumphant down in Sacramento, California at the Ace of Spades, which has a maximum occupancy of, I believe, 1,000 people. So it was a relatively small scale show, and I was fortunate enough to see Behemoth at this show, and that is how I'm going to review this concert. Mainly this review is going to focus on what went on throughout the day. I did have VIP tickets for this show, and that is definitely going to affect my review for some people, but I figure I would put the review out there just in case somebody else wanted to, potentially go on a VIP experience like this at some point in the future. So without further ado, let's jump headlong into carnage and get started on this review. The day had started out with me driving from my house to the Ace of Spades, which was about an hour and a half away from home. It's a pretty long trip, lots of traffic on the way down there. Definitely a lot of shopping and stuff if you ever need to go down towards that area. It has everything around it you could possibly ever want in Sacramento, California. Once you arrive down in Sacramento, there's a parking garage not even a quarter mile away from the Ace of Spades itself, which is right in the middle of downtown. The VIP experience began around 3 p.m. where you got to go and stand in for Behemoth sound check, and you got to go and interact with the band for probably about 45 minutes to an hour. For the VIP tickets and the tickets to the event, I spent around probably $200 for the whole experience, and let me tell you, just for the amount of time that you spent hanging out with the band during this VIP experience and watching the sound check, it was way more than worth it. Though I should also add that there were two tiers to the VIP tickets you could buy. You could buy a sound check, which was the highest version, and then you could just buy a signing meet and greet, which was the second to the lowest version, which I think was around $100 per ticket for just the meet and greet. So for in total of about $200, you got to go and hang around with Behemoth, watch a sound check, and etc., making this show already more than worth it, especially if you're a big fan of the band and you've been listening to them for way over a decade. It was so cool to go and experience this right next to the same stage they were going to play that night with their equipment. It was just so amazing. After that was the signing session plus personal meet and greet, where you got to go up, you got to take some photos with them, ask them questions, bring in something for them to sign, though I'd like to add that I did not bring anything for them to sign. I actually have this huge shrine to Behemoth on one of my walls at home, and it already has some signed stuff in it, but I've never done a meet and greet with them before. So they break you up and you just hang out with them, and we hung out with them for a good I don't know, at least a half an hour. I want to say it was closer to an hour, where you just got to go and mingle with them, ask them questions. You got to go and take some selfie photos with them too, which was pretty amazing, especially if you have listened to them for years and years and years. You don't get a chance to do this, but probably once or twice in a lifetime, and this was one of those days. After the meet and greet was over, there were about 15 of us that had tickets to the VIP section and the access to the meet and greet. So we went over to the merch booth and we were watching Imperial Triumphant conduct their sound check for the day. So that was kind of cool too. We kind of had to stay over in that area unless we wanted to go get right in front of Imperial Triumphant, which they had asked us not to, so we did not do that. After the meet and greet and after Behemoth had left, the main doors already had a quite large line in front of them of people who were ready to be let in. And I think at this time it was probably 6 p.m. in the evening. Showtime was starting close to 7 or 7:30. Then came the first band of the night, which was Imperial Triumphant. And they were pretty good. They sound like black metal mixed with jazz. Most of their music, as far as I could tell, was mainly instrumental. There wasn't a lot of vocals, but when there were vocals, they sounded like vocals from a Norwegian black metal band. They were actually very cool to go and watch. There were quite a few wild parts in their performance that I did not catch on video. There was one part in particular that I remember where I believe it was the bass player had walked off stage and into the crowd and literally ran through the crowd right in front of me. I did not know he was going to do it, or I would have caught it on video, but it was definitely one of the coolest things that has ever happened at a metal show. Very memorable, and I hope that these guys get a good bit more time on stage with somebody else in the future, because I would see them again. Then we were on to one of my favorite new metal acts that has been around for a few years now, and that is Temple. I first saw them a couple of years ago when they opened for Volbeat and Ghost, and I really liked them, and they did not disappoint that night, though there were a few things that were going on that were just kind of taking away from the performance. At one point, Alexandra James, who is the lead vocalist for Temple, stopped the band in between songs and asked whoever was smoking marijuana out in the crowd to stop. I definitely agree. It was making the air scratchy on the voice inside of there. Other than that, there were a couple of pretty drunk people who were definitely getting a little bit too rowdy during their set. At a couple of points that night, some people threw things like bottles up on stage. They yelled over the music and were basically generally trying to go and harass the band. Honestly, in retrospect, it did not do very much to the actual performance. It was just very annoying to go and see that, and it was definitely rude of people to go and do. After Temple's set, they set up a booth that's kind of near the merch table, way over at the side of the Ace of Spades, and they set up a booth, and you can go do a meet and greet, and I believe it was $100 where you went up, you could take a Polaroid photo with them, you could ask them questions, and they would give you a satanic baptism, which was also pretty cool too. And I would highly recommend that for anybody who's a big fan of the band, because it is a good way to go and support the band. And then came the band that everybody and their mother went to the Ace of Spades down in Sacramento to go and see, Behemoth. And what else is there to say? Then they were incredible. I won't go through and spoil all of their performance because everybody should probably go and see Behemoth at some point in their life. But there was definitely one instance of something happening during the Behemoth show that is going to stay with me forever, and I will share that experience with you right now. During Behemoth's set that night, they played a song that I had never heard them perform live before ever, and that was Versus Christus, I believe is how you pronounce it. And Nurgle Adam Darsky is no stranger to controversy, and this is one of those Behemoth signature moments where he takes out a Bible and tears it up while the music is playing in the back, while he vocalizes the words to the song. I've been to a lot of shows. I've seen Marilyn Manson when he was still around, who also tore up a Bible, but I have never seen a crowd so eager to tear up a Bible in my life, and it was one of the most metal and most memorable concert moments I've ever had in my life. It was absolutely off the walls wild. And it is right here that we approach the end of the night. Behemoth started playing Bartzabel, and we knew it was almost time for them to be wrapping up. Should you or somebody else go see a Behemoth show, or a Twin Temple show, or a Imperial Triumphant show? Well, in my opinion, yes. I do believe that this was probably one of the only few shows that I've been to that was absolutely worth the money that I put into it. But the thing is, these shows just don't come around. This date was part of a larger grouping that they had to scramble to go and get, and it was kind of like one of those once-in-a-lifetime opportunities, and it will forever live in my heart that way. I think that, honestly, everybody who considers themselves a metalhead should probably go and attend a Behemoth show, because it's the epitome of what heavy metal is and what it should be. I think that they're one of those top of their game bands that's just going to get better and better and better every time you see them. I've been to over a dozen concerts in my time, and I've seen well over 100 different metal bands and acts. And I can honestly tell you that this show is going to be one that lingers in my mind until my end of days. And that's just because it was so awesome. And you only really get a chance to go and see a band in a venue like that just a few times in your life, if you're lucky. And luckily, I was one of the lucky ones on this particular concert. I try to rate every show and give somebody a good rating based upon my experience at a show, and that's dependent upon basically how much fun you had at the show. Did you have access to water and clean restrooms? Was it worth the price of admission? Were the seats good seats, etc.? Things like that. I really try to just take in the experience as a whole and try to give it some sort of a grade for people who would like to potentially go to a show or want to go and visit a venue that I've been to. So given some of the grading criteria that I take into account, I want to go ahead and reveal what I would give this concert out of a 5 ranking. I would give this concert a 5 burning churches out of 5. This concert was a must-see. It's only going to happen once, I can guarantee you that. But it was so fantastic and terrific to attend. I hope that something like this would cross my path again with Behemoth, because I would go and eat it right up. It was one of the cheapest metal shows, especially for a VIP, that I have ever been to in my life, and I loved every single minute of it.